The things that, our competitors can't copy, product, service, process, whatever it is, they can't copy that relationship with that audience. If you really focus your effort on building relationship with your audience, that's where the win's going to be. And that's really one of the powers of YouTube, is all these how-to videos that are growing on the platform today. In this case, it's how to get a refi mortgage, right? Completely simple, something that we all know, and it's simple to us. But the thing about it is, it's not simple to all of our prospects, right? This might be something that's big and scary and complex to them, and all we're talking about doing is just putting together a video where you just kind of walk through the steps for doing a successful mortgage. Hey guys, and welcome to the video talking about how to get more leads. Well, listen, my name is David Adams, and I'm with Sirus Digital. We do direct digital marketing services for mortgage brokers and originators. Now, if you're kind of looking for the video and kind of look into some of these how to find leads as a mortgage broker, you've really kind of in some ways got two challenges, right? You're either trying to attract leads, or you're trying to nurture them into some kind of a close. In a lot of ways, you've been involved in what you've probably done either yourself or you've actually hired somebody, content development, building some kind of a website. Maybe you've ran ads, Google, Facebook, YouTube, whatnot. A lot of us, bought leads from some kind of what I call the aggregators. You're talking about LoanBright and LendingTree, and realistically, the results just have not been there, right? And the one thing that I want to share with you in here is I'm saying you're not alone. Right? You did some of these things, whether you did it yourself or you hired somebody else to do it, you're not getting the results that you expected out of it. It is a common problem that a lot of people have, and it's one of the things that I hope this video is going to help you out with a little bit today. Now, we're going to jump right into the video in just a second. From a logistical perspective, it's going to be about 45 to 50 minutes long, and then at the end, we're going to have about 10 to 15 minutes of Q&A. For those of you that have questions, definitely make sure you put them in the chat and ask them down below. But we're going to do that, and we're going to walk through that, and we're going to talk about how to create leads and how to nurture them and get more business and get more growth in your practice. Now, if you do need to reach out to me, if you have particular questions external to that, there's going to be web links and email that's going to be included in the video as well as in the description down below. So just check that out. But with that, let's go ahead and jump right into the video now. Hey guys, and we're going to jump right into it. Today we're going to be talking about 4 social media platforms for mortgage originators, mortgage brokers. I'm David Adams, and I'm with Sirus Digital. You got contact info down below, that https://www.sirusdigital.com/mortgage. If you want to do that, that's how you can actually connect with me. Now, a little bit about me. I own and manage SirusDigital.com. I've actually been building and leading software teams for probably about 20 years, producing content for about 10 of that. And as far as the last, 5 or 6 years, I've actually been producing a lot of content specifically around digital marketing, which is when I started SirusDigital.com. Now, I want to start out today and talk a little bit about why we're doing this. I said this on a radio show quite a few months ago, and really it associates to the fact that, competition is extremely vicious right now. It's extremely tough in a lot of the industries we work in, specifically in the mortgage market. And there's lots of competitors, and realistically, they can copy a lot of things about us, whether it's our product or service or our process. The one thing that they really can't copy is your relationship to your audience. And I'm going to go into a little bit of detail about that. I talk about relationships and audiences a lot. Specifically, I want to make sure you know what I'm talking about when I talk about audiences. The audiences are the people that are viewing and engaging with you and your content. That's something that we all kind of understand. The second part to that is something that a lot of times we get a little bit confused about. And that second part is that it is an audience that's on a platform that you control. And when I talk about that, as far as what's really not an audience, I'm not talking about Facebook friends or, followers on Twitter or some of the social media, subscribers to your YouTube. If you use an aggregator and buy leads, LoanBright, LendingTree, whatnot, that's not really the audience, because those are actually users or leads that are coming from another platform that they control. The biggest thing about the audience when we talk about your audience is that you got those people who are engaging with you on a platform that you control. The reason that that's actually important is, does anybody remember MySpace, right? And for those of you that might be about my age, you may do it. You may actually remember that. MySpace was a social media platform back a number of years ago that was extremely big. There were people even building businesses then on MySpace, the same way we see people building businesses on Facebook or Instagram today. Well, MySpace was a big thing until Mark Zuckerberg and a number of his friends at Harvard actually created a photo sharing app that today we know as Facebook. And once Facebook kind of took over the world, the usage of MySpace tanked, and it is a business platform actually just dissolved out from underneath people. And like I said, that's the biggest thing about this, is being able to get those users and that audience that you have onto a platform that you control, so that a platform that goes away or a platform that basically blocks you out for some violation of a rule or something doesn't basically undermine your business. Now, just for being here today, if you'll go out to that website, https://www.sirusdigital.com/mortgage, you can actually put in your email address and get a social media engagement PDF. It's going to talk about some of the same topics that we're talking about today. If you have in a little bit more detail, but that's just kind of my gift to you for you checking out the video today. Now, the platforms that we're going to talk about, kind of about YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. They're really big platforms. They're ones I want to talk about, and specifically for a couple of different reasons I added them here. From YouTube's perspective, it is the #2 search engine in the world. We're going to talk a little bit about that here in a minute. You know, from Facebook and Instagram, they're actually where the eyeballs are, right? There's like 2.5 million users of Facebook and growing, as well as about a little over 1 billion of Instagram, right? Now, the difference is from Facebook's perspective, the age range is a little bit different. Instagram usually is a little bit younger set, but again, you're talking about two platforms where upwards of 2.5, 3 billion users across the planet actually use them. And then the fourth one being LinkedIn. A lot of us probably knew LinkedIn when it was an online resume site. Today it's social media for professionals. And there's some really cool features about LinkedIn. Some of them even relatively new that we want to definitely use as we're doing some of our marketing efforts. Now, back to when we talked about a platform that goes away, right? The good thing about YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, they're associated with some of the biggest names in the world, right? Google, Facebook owning Facebook and Instagram, and then LinkedIn being owned by Microsoft. You're talking about 3 of the 4 biggest companies on the planet that are associated with these platforms. They're probably not going away. They may change, but they're probably not going away. Now, why not some other platform? Why not Twitter? Why not Pinterest? Why not TikTok? If you actually have an existing engagement group on another platform, by all means use it, right? You've already got an audience or a group of people that you interact with, followers. These kind of techniques that we're going to talk about today would work on other platforms. You may have to adapt them a little bit, but they're probably going to be functional and be good. The thing that I made is if you were going to start today, here's the 4 platforms you may want to use. You may pick up Twitter and drop off another one, right? Or you may pick up TikTok and drop off another. That's completely fine. There's nothing wrong with it. Just one thing that you got to remember is that there's a learning aspect to every platform that you target, right? And what we do want to make sure we're doing is the objective to what all we're doing whether it's leads or nurturing people to become customers, is the relationships are our objective, right? It's not learning platforms. If you do have to learn other platforms, you got to kind of figure out how they work, what kind of content works on them, how the users on those platforms behave, what they interact with. Those are that's just a bunch of time that you're having to spend the more platforms that you touch, and ultimately that takes away from you being able to build relationships. Because remember, the things that our competitors can copy, product, service, process, whatever it is, they can't copy that relationship with that audience. If you really focus your effort on building relationship with your audience, that's where the win's going to be. Now, I do share some about content thirds, and we're kind of talking about the mortgage industry. I think we do a pretty good job overall, from a mortgage broker, mortgage originator, how we actually talk about our industry, right? The big thing that we talk about is interest rates, or how that might relate to real estate, or how that might relate to some other type of investing, or how that might relate to the credit industry or whatnot. We do a pretty good job of talking about our industry. Where we kind of struggle is when I talk about this content third situation, is when we're building up content, we want to have content about our industry, about our location, and about our association, right? Location is kind of where we are, and then associations are interest groups, right? Different associations or connections from an interest perspective that give us the opportunity to get seen by wider and wider groups of people. We do a really good job from the industry perspective. I think at times we kind of suffer. Some of us are kind of weaker when you talk about location-related content or even association-based content based on interests. Now, when we talk about it, a lot of what we're going to talk about today is video. I think video is key, and it's actually a wide open opportunity for mortgage brokers and mortgage originators. And the biggest reason that is because a lot of people aren't using it, and B, that in today's world, you can do more with your smartphone and kind of some tripod selfie stick kind of a deal. You can do more today than a lot of video and even Hollywood production companies could do with really, really expensive cameras, not 10 or 15 years ago. The biggest thing that that I do like about video, in addition to the fact that it's such a wide open opportunity, is its strength and capability to build recognition, awareness, and trust. Right now, we've all seen these sort of estimates, and I include them here because they're really important when we talk about recognition, awareness, and trust. In that, hey, you remember 10% of what you read, 20% of what you hear, and over 30% of what you see. That's cool. But now, when you think about it from the aspect of video, that sets up for potentially over 60% retention for a captioned video that has audio associated to it, right? Because we get the benefit of all three. And the way that actually can quickly build and strengthen trust with our market and our different people that we associate with, we don't want to give it away. That's why video, from my perspective, is such a key opportunity. Now, we all know about YouTube and video. The biggest thing is Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. All three of those platforms actually allow for varying length of content to be shared with your followers. And when you take the video that you actually show on maybe Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram, whatever, the link that you show the video, and then you can actually put a link in your post that redirects that maybe shorter video to a longer video that you might have on another platform like YouTube, which is what we're going to talk about. The other cool thing about video is if you actually create your content as video, then you can just immediately in post-production strip it down to audio and make a podcast. Or you can take the captions, if you produce the captions, and those captions can actually be published and put together as blog posts or newsletters or any kind of written format like that. It's just the opportunity that you have to decompose content that you create originally in the video form and put it into multiple formats. Now, I've talked about YouTube. We're going to start with YouTube just because when we talk about video, that's where YouTube starts. And a lot of people will actually ask, hey, is it a social platform or is it a search platform? My answer when I get this question a lot is yes. It's really yes to both. It is a social platform because you're building a follower, right? You can subscribe. You can click the little bell so that you're notified when videos like this show up. Or the other aside is that it's a search platform as well, because it actually is the #2 search engine in the world owned by Google, and it actually works on the same kinds of search algorithms that Google does, right? And what those search algorithms do is they're intended to deliver the best possible answer to any kind of user request. That's why if you go into Google or go into YouTube and actually search in how to replace a carburetor on a leaf blower, which I had to do in the last couple of weeks, you actually show a number of different videos that show you how to do it. How-tos on YouTube are a big thing, right? They're a big way to actually get views and content and get your content found on the platform itself. Now, the first kind of idea we're going to talk about is the technique of what they call the digital mayor, right? And it's where you're basically interviewing everybody you meet. Whether that's a 10 or 15-minute interview with other people who are in your area of service. You kind of see the picture to the left. That's a situation where you're interviewing all these people in your local service area, and the interviews that you do and the attention that you gather for them actually continues to associate back to you and as the interviewer. Right, you're like the Katie Couric, right? You're actually the interviewer, and as you do it over and over again, the awareness of you keep showing up in all of their hits. Now, from the videos and title, when you put it on the description and whatnot in your YouTube channel, your YouTube video, the description and the title that you do actually talks about who, where, and why, right? Who they are, where this actual location, right? Where this actually interview took place, and where it's important, and then why it's important to you, right? These are all opportunities that you have to begin building these associations with other people in your local service area. Now, I do add a couple of do's and don'ts to this. The big do is make sure that you make the interview and the video that you interview about the interviewee, right? About the interviewee and their connection to the service area. That is the key part to this, right? This is how you're building up more and more awareness of you in your local service area by interviewing more and more people. Now, the second do there is what I call the 120-second outro, right? It might be 90 seconds, it might be 60, whatever it is. But if you do an interview with somebody, and say you do a 15-minute interview with your local nonprofit director, and at the end of that, basically is you in front of more of a white screen, right? Just you talking, saying, hi, I'm Beth, and I'm a mortgage broker in this particular area. listen, if you're moving into the area or you're looking to refinance your house, give me a call, 555-123-1234, right? Or www.callbethforamortgage.com. Either one of those type things. And what that's largely doing is that's giving you that 1 minute to 2 minute long commercial that's at the back of that interview. And that shows up in every one of your videos so that people, again, get the opportunity to recognize you as important in your local service area. Now, as far as the don'ts go, don't worry about making it fancy. It doesn't have to be you don't have to have a super camera. You're doing this with your smartphone. That's going to be completely good. Don't worry about what you look or sound like. It's really not important, because realistically, again, this is all about the person you're interviewing and their connection to your service area. A lot of people say, well, gee, who would I interview? I talked about the nonprofit directors earlier. I'd made this list in less than 5 minutes. Restaurant owners, store owners, it really doesn't matter. For those of us that are in the mortgage or mortgage brokers or mortgage originators, we deal with attorneys and real estate professionals and people in the housing and building industries. We deal with them on a pretty much daily basis, weekly basis. Definitely reach out to them, right? These are all interviews that you can do and just begin cross-pollinating your business as well as theirs. On more of the right side, I thought about more of the government and local officials or areas, your principals, star teachers, head football coach, whether it's your sheriff, county commissioners, some of your state officers or whatnot. All of these types of people are important in your local service area, and people might be interested in hearing from them in your local service area, and you're the one that's offering that and doing that interviews for them. I said down at the bottom, keep thinking, because honestly, I did this list in like 5 minutes. I'm sure you could come up with a double this list if you took another 5 for yourself. Now, we're going to jump into our second technique, and this one is more of a how-to video. I mentioned you want to talk about YouTube earlier when we started talking about YouTube, and that's really one of the powers of YouTube is all of these how-to videos that are growing on the platform today. In this case, it's how to get a refi mortgage, right? Completely simple, something that we all know, and it's simple to us, but the thing about it is it's not simple to all of our prospects, right? This might be something that's big and scary and complex to them, and all we're talking about doing is just putting together a video where you just kind of walk through the steps for doing a successful mortgage, right? You may cover the different loan types in which you specialize, talk about what they do, talk about what kind of requirements they have, what they're good for, what they're not good for, walk through the process step by step. Here's what you do first, here's what you do, here's what you do second. Highlight some of the documentation that they're going to be required and some of the pre-steps that they want to follow to do it. All these things that you're doing, which is, in this case, you're just kind of doing what I call calming the complexity, right? You're making it understandable. You're basically expecting that, hey, this is a skill and a piece of knowledge that I have that I'm freely sharing out here to tell you how to do it. Now, when you do it, my recommendation is definitely talk about real numbers and real obstacles, right? Talk about, here's where the catch point is. Here's where everybody trips up. Here's what one of the things you want to do first, because ultimately it impacts 20% of the people and torpedoes the loan for them. All of these kind of things that you can add into that just make your video your video and your content that much more valuable. Now, one thing about the don'ts on these is don't set unrealistic expectations. Hey, listen, you come in with me a credit score of 500 and I'm gonna get you a $600,000 mortgage. If you can do it, great. Put that video about how to do that, because a lot of people may check it out. However, if that's not something you can do, don't put a video, because you're just setting unrealistic expectations. And on the backside, it's going to be a very negative experience for the user who's trying to follow your steps. Now, the third one is a little bit of an extension on that how-to video, and this one's more of a how we got to yes, right? Now, when we talk about this is more of a case study type video. If you get the opportunity to somebody you work with that's just really happy, that's willing to sit down with you and talk about the process of working with you and what their experience was, this is a great opportunity, right? This is what we call the hero's journey a lot of times. This is the story of a successful mortgage that one of your customers got. You could kind of highlight the situation, talk about the obstacles that were there if they're comfortable talking about that, and then share a lot of the steps and actions that the both of you followed to get to a successful conclusion, right? These are extremely powerful videos from a trust aspect, because you're allowing somebody else to tell the story about their good experience with you. Now, a couple of hints to that. I say here, tease the outcome, and this goes back, and I want you to sort of think about it from the context of recipe videos. In the case of the recipe videos, when you actually see one, rarely ever does the video start with a bowl and then people are putting flour and eggs and sugar into it. I mean, if I were to see that video in the first 3 or 5 seconds, I know that you're creating a dessert, but I don't know which one. Right? It could be this or it could be that. It may be something I don't like. I'm probably going to scroll and will not pay attention. Teasing the outcome is where they actually show you the coconut cream pie first, right? They show you the outcome, and then the video is the recipe showing you how to get there. That's the way they do recipes. That's what I want to recommend that you do here, right? Show the outcome of the happy family in front of the house who got the mortgage and the we win photo, and then talk about the interview of how you kind of got there, what kind of challenges you had to overcome, and then what it took to produce the result, right? Now, a second thing that I want to suggest is if the person is comfortable doing this, it's okay, but my initial thought would be to don't really identify the individual, right? These kind of videos actually work really good against a black screen, right? Or maybe just a picture of you, like you were talking to them on the phone and interviewing them without showing their picture. And the reason that I say that is there may be things that's discussed that they're not comfortable talking about if people kind of know who they are. But if this is, Fred A that's, in Georgia, that may actually work out well, right? A lot of people may be comfortable talking about it from that context if it's not just completely self-identifiable that it's them that's the subject. So that's okay. That's kind of, you have a conversation. If it is somebody that's comfortable going on camera with you and they see, again, they get the visual of seeing the person, that's that much better. But a lot of times you don't want to identify the individual, especially if it's somebody that had challenges that you were helping them work through. Now, I do mention a show and tell aspect of the videos, and I talk about this because this really goes to the what you actually see, right, and hear. Now, 70% of the YouTube videos that are shown today are actually shown on mobile devices. That's just statistics that YouTube tell us. And of the same thing in the same vein, YouTube tells us that of 85% of the mobile videos, so that's on some kind of device, that are the mobile videos on YouTube, they're watched with the sound off. Now, it's a little bit counterintuitive as to why that might be, but really it's not, because we've all done it. We've been laying in bed late at night, early in the morning, and we don't want to wake up our spouse or significant other that may be laying nearby, or kids or something. We don't want to bother them. However, we're scrolling through YouTube and scrolling through, and we're watching the video or just reading the captions, right? Sounds off. And where that makes this important is just highlighting the need to make sure you include captions for your videos, and then make sure you have really solid visuals and actions in that first 3 to 5, maybe even 10 seconds, because you want to clearly communicate what the topic and the intent of your video is to get people to stay along. If somebody gets onto your video and in the first 3 or 4 seconds, it doesn't look very interesting, I don't really know what you're going to talk about, more than likely I'm going to scroll on to the next one and you've already lost the opportunity to engage with me. Now, I hear a lot of objections every once in a while, and really it usually comes down to 2 different things. Either A, I don't look good and sound good on recordings, or it's a lot of work. As far as don't look good, don't sound good, don't worry about it, guys. Eventually, even in today's COVID world of everybody using Zoom, people still are going to see us. They're still going to talk to us on the phone. Very rarely are we going to close mortgages just extensively by email, never having to talk to anybody. That's just not going to happen much. If you have a business model that works that way, great. Most of us do not, right? So we're going to meet eventually. Don't worry about what you look like. Don't worry about what you sound like. Just try to create good videos that deliver good information, and you're going to do fine with it. As far as this is a lot of work, in a lot of ways it is. However, there's a couple of really cool things about it. Everything that we're talking about here is completely repeatable, right? A lot of the same questions that you may be asking on interviews are the same question you're asking over and over again, right? And as far as the post-production of the videos, how you're actually decomposing them into audio or video, or from video to audio, or down into more images or quotes or written word, everything that we're talking about from that aspect is completely trainable, right? A virtual assistant, an administrative assistant, or whatnot, you can actually train them to do a lot of this work. Another good thing that I do highlight about this being a lot of work is everything that we're going to talk about on the video today is completely free, right? We're not costing any kind of money. It's just the time and the effort that we put into it, or one of our assistants does. Now, what do you need to actually accomplish this? You do need a smartphone, right? Most all of us already have one in our pocket. The odds are it's in your pocket, it's been vibrating. Hopefully you turned it off to watch this video, but if you didn't, it's in your phone and it's been vibrating with text messages the whole time. The other piece of thing that you need is some kind of software to edit the video, right? To actually produce the video. I did give you 3 recommendations on the page. I'm an Android user. I've been using PowerDirector for a couple of years. Most of the videos that are on my YouTube channel are produced with PowerDirector. If they're on Android, basically they're videos that I filmed with my phone and produced them on my phone, and then publish them up to YouTube or Facebook or wherever from my phone. Again, I love PowerDirector. It's a free tool. Same thing applies for iPhone. If you're an iPhone user, iMovie is the same kind of a application. You're taking the video on your phone. You're able to produce it on your phone and upload it to the different platforms from your phone. From my perspective, for Windows, Mac, and Linux, I've been using DaVinci Resolve for probably about a month or 6 weeks. I actually love the product. That's why I'm using the highlighted in green here. If you want to get really cool Hollywood almost like production looking videos and content, DaVinci Resolve is a place you want to go to. There's a little bit of a learning curve to it, but definitely reach out to me and ping me on an email or something like that. I'll have an email address at the end. If it's something that you want to look into, and I can definitely send you some resources for it. As for all 3 of these pieces of software, PowerDirector, iMovie, and DaVinci Resolve, links to all 3 of them are down in the description below. You can actually check those out and definitely decide which one of the products you want to do. But like I said, the links are down below for that. Now, when we talk about YouTube, we're going to largely have created a video, whichever type we wanted to do, whether it's an interview or whatnot. And we've got the video, and you can actually cut that video using one of your video editing tools into smaller videos, right? You may take a 15-minute video, an interview video with somebody, but you may cut it down into like 2 minutes or 1 minute that you can show on Facebook, and largely break that down and into a shorter form of content. You can also, in post-production, actually strip entirely all the audio out of it and just have a podcast. Or if you pull down images or quotes from the video, you can actually produce those so that, again, you're decomposing that one interview video into multiple pieces of content that you can actually share out to your audience. Now, as far as the other 3 platforms and more of the social media platforms, specifically Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, we're going to jump right into those now. I do want to give a little bit of a background on the different areas that we post on those particular environments, right? What I recommend is your feed, stories, and groups, right? And we're going to talk a little bit about both, and then we'll talk how they relate to each of the platforms as we jump into them. From a feed perspective, that's usually what you see in the center on your phone or the center on your laptop or your desktop that you may have. That's largely the feed post. That's where everybody posts. On some platforms, the organic reach of it isn't very good. We'll get to Facebook and talk a little bit about that. One thing to think about the feed post is on a lot of the platforms, they have what they call what's about a 5 or a 6 hour effective lifespan. Now, when I talk about an effective lifespan, what I'm really describing here is the fact that if you're one of 500 people that somebody else follows, the reason it's 5 or 6 hours of an effective lifespan is within the span of 5 or 6 hours, there's already been 200 or 300 other posts stuck on top of yours. Rarely is anybody ever going to get to it, right? That's what we talk about when the effective lifespan. However, it is an effective lifespan because the post doesn't go away. If you think about it, that's why 4 years from now you get that thing back from Facebook that says 4 years ago you were doing this. It's a memory, right? And you have an opportunity to repost it again. But again, from an effective standpoint, probably 85 to 90% of the engagement and the viewing of a particular post is going to go within the first probably 4 to 6 hours. Now, separate from feed is the stories, which is up at the top of the page. Location, 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 right? We all remember that. It's up at the top of the page. They mostly have about a 24-hour lifespan, which is a little bit tough because in that case, with one exception, that is a 24-hour lifespan. After 24 hours, it goes away. However, being up at the top of the page, it is something that more people will see within that 24-hour period. And then the third thing we're going to talk about is kind of groups. I sort of break the influence of groups down. I love groups. I break their influence down into peers, prospects, and customers. Peers are those kind of people we want to be recognized by, right? It could be real estate agents. It could be bankruptcy attorneys. It could be the nonprofit directors in our area. It could be the people that work at the local hospital. Any of people that are peers that we want to be recognized and respected among, and that we want to be able to know what we do, so that if they encounter somebody that's looking for a mortgage, they might tell them to come talk to us, right? That's the peers that we're kind of talking about. From a prospect's perspective, that's the people we want to be seen by, right? I want to get into those audiences that could be prospects for me, because ultimately I want to turn them into customers. And once I turn them into customers, I want these people to be able to go deeper with them, right? I want to have a longer term relationship with them, keep talking to them, because in our case, if we do a mortgage for somebody, probably in 6 to 10 years, we may refinance that mortgage, or they may buy another house. We want to basically keep that interaction going over periods of time, and especially because that kind of creates a longer term tail of the interactions and the relationship that we have with them. The groups specifically themselves, I mean, they exist for any number of topics, right? Locations, industries, your area of faith probably has them, any kind of particular interest group, sports that you like, sports teams. The groups exist for all of them. And what you just want to do is find out where people that you want to interact with, whether it's as peers, prospects, or customers, where they interact, so that you can actually work within those groups to be building a relationship with them. Now, we're going to start out with Facebook today, just because it's kind of the big monster of the group. As it relates to feed, Facebook is kind of where we talk about the 6% organic reach, right? This is the one that kind of hits a lot of people. And you think about it, people gripe about it today that, Facebook's organic reach is so bad because of their ads. It is yes and no. It is because they're trying to maximize their ad revenue. But one thing to think about is we all have that one person. 6% isn't a fixed number, right? It's an average. We all have that one person that seems like they post 5 or 6 times a day, and we see a 5 or 6, we saw all of them, right? For some reason, the organic reach of that person's Facebook account is 100% for me. That's because of the way Facebook's algorithm actually works. Facebook wants you to stay on the platform. So if you're engaging with a particular person or a particular type of content, Facebook is just going to show you more of that content or more of that person. But that does set that sets up the case that we have some influence over whether or not our content actually shows up in the feed more than maybe that 6% average. And that's just because if we can make content that our followers want to engage with. That's how we can actually work with the algorithm and get our engagement up from there. Now, from a perspective of stories, stories actually will allow you to do text, they'll do video, audio, whatever it is. If you actually you can create it in segments, which those of you have probably checked out stories if you haven't where the segments actually kind of can tell a story, right? That's what they call them, stories. So a lot of people will show pictures, 20-second pictures, and show different pictures. Well, there's nothing that would stop you from taking your video, take about a 2 to 3 minute video, and cut it into 20-second segments, because the segments can be up to 20 seconds long, and then tell an entire story through that multiple set of segments. That's what I'm going to kind of recommend here, and we'll talk a little bit about it. But on Facebook, the segments can be 20 seconds long, so you can break your video that might tell the story into 20-second segments that will be definitely longer than 20 seconds itself. Now, Facebook does have the limitation of the 24 hours or 2 views. After either one of those has been hit, it goes away. There is a capability, and you'll notice it, is if you're adding stories, where you can put a call to action button or a link on your particular story. Just to understand, if you do that, Facebook's going to charge you like that's an ad, right? They're going to treat that like an ad. And the way you have to think about it is any kind of button or link that's going to take somebody off Facebook, Facebook's going to charge you to do that, because you're really doing an advertising type situation there. Now, from the group's perspective, definitely make sure you're joining groups that include both peers, prospects, and customers. Do them all, right? Because those are the people that you want to interact with. Now, the good part there's goods and bads. The good part to groups is that the posted content to the group, all the members see, right? You kind of get around that whole 6% of organic reach limitation that goes out into the feed. Sort of the give back and the takeaway, and the bad side to it is there's an additional set of curation on groups, and that's done by the moderators. We all know that Facebook itself curates the content on the platform. We've heard that in the news a lot recently. However, when you get into the groups, there's an additional set of curator, and that's the moderators, right? They're the moderators who set the rules up for how the groups get managed, what kind of content is allowed into the group. So one of the things that I definitely highlight here is to make sure you're providing value to the group about whatever the group is interested in. That's a key point of what you need to do to make sure you're a good participant in the group. A pro tip, I kind of added it down here, is create the group. If you see a place where there could be a group that got created that just doesn't seem to exist, create the group, because see, then that makes you the administrator and the moderator. And there's nothing really more stronger or pro-ish, pro tip, kind of a hint, hack of a way to do things than you create a group that people who are interested in the topic that you're talking about are raising their hands to join, right? That's the cool way to make sure you're getting first chance to interact with some of those peers, prospects, and customers that are reported to you. Now we're going to jump onto Instagram. From a feed perspective, the biggest thing you know about Instagram is it's just more visual. It's just a more visual ecosystem. It always has been since they created it. Even the purchase by Facebook's not really going to change that. It's just a different platform that is way more visual, but that's going to benefit because we're dealing with videos predominantly, right? Now, the organic reach is a little bit better on Instagram today. However, it's kind of heading in that direction of Facebook. So it's sort of heading toward that average of, around 6%. But again, same rules apply for, working with the algorithms. We want to make sure that we're producing content that indexes with engagement, right? So the people who are seeing it actually engage with it. That's going to make Instagram show it more to everybody else, as well as those people who are in our audience also. Stories, Instagram has the same idea of allowing you to do segments for your stories. They're up to 15 seconds long. I did highlight this. This is going to be important when we talk about the recommendations coming up soon. In the case of like Facebook, it was a 20-second segment. In the case of Instagram, it's a 15-second. And that's a maximum, right? In all those cases that we're talking about, it's a maximum of 15 seconds allowed. Now, a cool thing about the stories on Instagram is even though they expire after 24 hours, you can actually move them into highlights, which is on your Instagram user page. The highlights are just part of the Instagram user page, and you can move your stories there. If you do that, they have more of a longer lifespan, right? They'll actually exist there, as far as I know, in perpetuity, right, forever. So in that case, if somebody sees you on Instagram, goes and looks at your homepage on Instagram, your user page on Instagram, looks in your highlights, they're going to get to see all the stories that you've shared into those highlights. Same rule applies for the call to action button. On the link, it gets treated just like an ad, same way Facebook does. It's owned by Facebook. It's what we can expect. As far as groups go, I'm not as big a fan on the Instagram platform. If you actually offer or manage some kind of mastermind groups for customers or peers or even prospects, the groups are great there, because on Instagram they kind of limit you to 15 users. It's why it kind of works for the masterminds, but it doesn't really work for you're trying to either create or get involved in large groups of people that you can actually show your content to, just because they're limited to like 15 users. It's not as great an opportunity. However, a good proxy for that are hashtags, and I like how Instagram did hashtags. They kind of got it right. Historically, those of us that use Twitter or some of the other platforms earlier that had hashtags, a lot of times you see went to the store and got cut off in traffic, hashtag mad. That's an emotion, right? That's not really associating any kind of a affiliation or association with anybody. That's just kind of communicating an emotion that you may have. On Instagram, most of their hashtags in a lot of forums are more affiliation based, right? They're more group based. In my case, when I post things onto Instagram, about from SirusDigital.com, I'll hashtag it with something like, hashtag mortgage broker or hashtag mortgage marketing. Any kind of hashtags like that, which basically other people may be following, and that once they're following that hashtag and keeping an eye on it, they're more likely to see me. See, it works exactly like a group does. As far as the hashtags on Instagram go, you can have up to 30 on your feed posts and up to 10 on your stories. Those are really big numbers. It's kind of, I don't do it myself just because it seems kind of spammy. I'm going to probably pick somewhere between 5 or 6 of good, meaningful ones and keep reusing them when they're appropriate, as opposed to, because what I want to really do is I want to focus on the content in my post, as opposed to trying to put numbers and numbers of hashtags on them, trying to get more and more people to see it, because once more and more people see it, there's got to be something there for them to engage with and come back to. Otherwise, you're not helping yourself at all. Now, the fourth platform we're going to talk about here, third one from a social media perspective, is LinkedIn. Now, as far as the feed goes from LinkedIn, my kind of recommendation here is post everything you got there. The reason I say that is because the organic reach on LinkedIn, at least for right now, a lot of people compare it to kind of pre-2015 Facebook. Right, that's back when, if you remember Facebook, you could post anything and everybody would see it. Facebook has kind of diminished from that aspect nowadays. LinkedIn has not. LinkedIn still kind of works that way. So if you've got content, definitely be posting it in your LinkedIn, because that's kind of a power move, and you have a much higher organic reach for LinkedIn than you may on some of these other platforms, especially in their feeds. As it goes to stories, that's actually a new feature in LinkedIn. It was publicly released in September of 2020, and the segments are up to 20 seconds long. Since it's so new, a lot of people aren't using it. Definitely another great opportunity. It's why I actually like LinkedIn right now, and I'll talk about it from the group's perspective as well. I like LinkedIn groups as well. Probably should just do a video on LinkedIn the way it's sounding. But realistically, if you kind of think about it, I do make the recommendation here. This actually works on Facebook too, but I make the recommendation here from LinkedIn's perspective. Do not overlook, especially from a local perspective, when you're talking about local content, don't overlook your local government, local hospitals, and local schools. The reason that I like hospitals and schools even better is because there is always new doctors, nurses, and teachers who are moving into the area, right? That is always a good place for people that are raising their hand, because they're joining these local hospital, local school type groups. They're raising their hand when they're moving in, saying, hey, I'm going to be new to the neighborhood, or I'm going to be new to the area. And those are prime places for you to be putting in your content, saying, hi, I'm Beth and I'm a mortgage broker. If you're looking for a mortgage, call me, right? Now, as far as hashtags go, they work the same way on LinkedIn. There's actually no limit on them. My recommendation is, again, to stick around 5 or 6, because we want to focus more on our content, not on just creating hashtags that direct attention when there's no content there to engage with. Now, we talk about where this is going, and we saw this picture earlier where we talk about the YouTube video that we broke down into different videos, or maybe audio only, or only image or text only. The big thing is when we break it down again, right? And this is where it kind of starts getting cool, because we can break down some of those smaller forms of the video and post them onto Facebook, or audio onto Instagram, or text or video onto LinkedIn. And then ultimately, if we do that with some of the smaller videos, we can direct them back to YouTube to see the longer form video, right? And begin cross-pollinating all 4 of the platforms to be gathering our information and our attention across all the different platforms. The biggest part being what comes next, right? Which is the next one being is where you actually take the attention that you may get on the 4 platforms and pull it onto something like a landing page or your own website. What you're seeing down in the bottom left is actually my landing page that you would see if you go to HTTPS www.sirusdigital.com/mortgage. If you go to that address, you're going to see my landing page, which is digital marketing strategy for SirusDigital.com. That's how this actually works. And that's the recommendation that I'm making to you, to basically just copy what I'm doing here for your business as well. Now, here's kind of how to do it, right? Here's the how-to. You're going to create the video, and say for this example, we did a digital mayor interview type video. Once the video is produced, what I want you to do is cut down a second one that's about 60 to 90 seconds long, right? That's a teaser. Like, think about a movie. The movie's 2 hours long. They take and get a trailer or a teaser, right? We want to create that 60 to 90 second long teaser about our long form video using the shorter one like this. And then the other thing we're going to do is we're going to splice down a third sequence of 15-second clips that put together would compose, and again, a complete video or a teaser. Right now, the 15 seconds we noted here, I said I was going to mention that a little bit later. The reason we're using the 15-second clips is because 15-second clips are the maximum on Instagram. Since even though on Facebook and LinkedIn, the maximum is 20 seconds, you can actually have a 15-second set of segments on Facebook and LinkedIn. So once we basically splice it down into 15-second segments, we can reuse those on all 3 platforms and kind of save the time of redoing a lot of the work. Now, that original long form video that we had, that goes on YouTube, right? With the title, check out this whatever that's in your particular area. That's basically talking about interest and location and maybe market, and it's talking about association, right? And then your area talking about the location. And then in the description, we're talking about particulars about the video, and then also contact details that may be your website, your phone number, your landing page, whatever it is, that's in the description, but where we're trying to pull the attention and the attention and the interest off from. Now, video number 2, which was our 60 to 90 second teaser, that goes on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Put it in feeds, get it into relevant groups, and then make sure on your post that you're getting a link to your YouTube where the longer form video might be, right? So, hey, if you like this particular segment of this teaser of the video, check out the longer interview on YouTube. Number 3 is basically the segments that we had. That's Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn stories. And I recommend doing a final panel. If you remember when I talked about it, I said that if you put the LinkedIn button or the link on the actual final panel, they're going to charge you with an ad. Well, that's if you put a link or a button there that's trying to take them off of Facebook. But now you can create a blank screen at the end, like a black screen, kind of like this, that just says go to SwamiDaveSays.com. right? Or go to Swami Dave Says as a YouTube channel, or check out, this on this website and just put the website on there, not make it a link, but just show the URL for it. Or, tell them to direct them to comment or DM you if they're interested in more topics. That's the way you can actually, even though you don't want to use an ad situation for it, you can actually be pulling the attention off onto other things like your website using some of these techniques from the stories. Now, if you think about it, we talked about these content thirds earlier. We said we did pretty good in the industry, in the market. We needed some work from our location and associations. That's what we've done, right? From a location perspective, we've got the interviews, we've got the how-tos, we've got the success stories. All of those are building up our awareness and our attention within the local market specifically to that, and then the associations more around the groups and the hashtags, right? So that we built that up and made a much wider expanding of our content that's bringing attention back to us. Now, I do mention this here because I want to make sure that everybody's aware. A lot of people look at social media platforms and they kind of see them as a show, right? They think Facebook's like a show, and they treat it like one. It's really not, right? Facebook itself thinks of itself as a channel or a network, right? They see themselves as a network, and all their social media platforms do that. Now, that specific change of viewpoint actually helps us in the content that we create, right? Because if Facebook is the network, or Instagram is the network, or LinkedIn is the network, then the content that we're putting on it is actually the show, right? And it's the responsibility of the show to attract and engage the audience. That's how that works too. And always remember that the best and most effective marketing is placement of your product and your service within the show. Now, the kind of the third part to this, and we don't really talk about ads all that much in this particular video, but Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, all of them, YouTube as well, they see ads as commercials, right? So you're actually paying for the commercial space and usually bringing traffic off to somewhere else. As you get better with your particular content, you get better with your engagement, and you want to talk to somebody like Sirus Digital and do more of an advertising type pattern, definitely shoot us a call and get in touch with us, because we'd like to talk to you about that. Now, here are some assignments that I want you to take away from the video. Basically, use your phone, film one video, right? It can be interview, how to get or refinance your mortgage, how we got to a yes, any one of the 3 types. I just want you to do one. And that video needs to go up to YouTube, right? That's the first one that we do. And then we clip the video with our post-production and create that 60 to 90 second teaser that goes out to Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and then create 15-second segments to get to a story. And that's going to go on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn stories. That's your assignment number 1 that I want you to work on first. Number 2 is I want you to find one affiliation group on each of the platforms. On Facebook and LinkedIn, find one hashtag kind of affiliation that you can do on Instagram. And then what I want you to do is join/follow for about 5 to 10 minutes a day, each one of them for a week, right? You don't have to post, you don't have to respond, you want to watch. You want to watch and see what kind of interactions people that are in that group have with each other. Because at the end of that first week and starting into the second week, what I want you to do is I want you to engage with at least one post every day in each group for the next week, right? That's the next 6 days. The reason we're doing that is I want you to become noticed by the moderators and by the admins on the group as somebody who's bringing value back into the group, right? Don't be spammy. Don't be trying to sell them stuff when you're there. Give them real value back into the group for what they're asking a question about or what they're interested in. And then on the last day of the week, post your 60-second highlight, that teacher video that you had, just post it into the group or hashtag From my perspective, I've never seen where a moderator got mad about you doing that. If you've been posting all week, producing value and bringing value into their group, they're not going to get upset if one day a week you put up your 60-second highlight that shows, hey, go check out this other longer form video on YouTube. Most moderators are not going to get upset about that. Now, all of this circles around, again, I said that I talk about relationships a lot. Without a relationship, Walmart and Amazon win. That's the case. Again, none of these quotes I used on the same radio show. Where that kind of go is I talked to the host about it. From a perspective of convenience, Amazon's going to win. It's not going to do me any good to compete with Amazon on convenience. And by the same token, it's not going to do me any good to try to compete with Walmart on price. As long as I try to compete on their platform, I'm going to lose. They're going to win. The one thing to kind of think about, and it's important to this as well, is that the same thing is going to happen with LendingTree or LoanBright, right? If we're trying to compete with some of the lead aggregators like LoanBright, like a LendingTree, whomever, if we're going to try to compete with them on their platform, we're going to lose too. We've got to really be working on relationships that we build with our peers, prospects, and customers to basically win, because that's actually something that Amazon and Walmart, they can't compete and can't take away from us. Now, just a little bit of parting advice that I want to share with you. My recommendation to you, and a lot of what this video has been, is developing that virtual audience space, right? It's a place where you exist as a brand. You know, and it's on a platform that you control. That might be more your website or maybe your landing page or your email group, whatever that is. It's a platform that you control where you actually control that audience. And as you grow that, that's something that actually acts as a hub, is for your content flows and where attention filters back. That is really key, that you build that particular space where you can work and do that, because that's where you can actually grow. Now, a lot of people will have struggles with this, or they tried this in the past. When I've done strategy and consulting sessions with people, most of the times, most of the problems they have are lack of content. That is, quite frankly, the biggest one. I usually tell them, hey, you're just not producing enough content. If it's somebody that we honestly look at and say, hey, you know what, they're producing a lot of content, most of the other problems are that when you start looking at the content, it's just content about the producer, right? It's about us. Just make sure your content is about the audience and is something that's trying to attract the audience, not so much about what you want from them. Now, the third piece of parting advice that I'll definitely share with you is, if you actually publish content and somebody measurably engages, right? They actually respond, they send you back a comment, they actually watch it, they do a like on it, respond to them, right? Because what that actually sees is that you're actually responding to people who respond and engage to your content. That's going to lead more and more people to respond and engage with it. If all you do is, if 10 people respond to your video and you don't respond to any of them, then person number 11 that sees that just says, well, he's a jerk. He doesn't even care if I watch it or not. He just stuck it up here hoping somebody would see it. No, what they're looking for is build that relationship, right? Now, a lot of people will say, well, gee, David, I'm just too busy to do that. If you're too busy to respond, contact Sirus Digital, please. You know, get me on the email, get the contact to my landing page so we can talk. There's definitely strategies and processes that you can do to where it makes it more of a process. It is work to do. I completely acknowledge that, but there's processes and procedures and kind of practices that we can work with you to develop so that it becomes a little bit easier, or something that you can actually hand off to somebody like a VA to do. The reality is, and it's the hint that I'll say, almost none of us are too busy. That's just the reality of it. Now, don't forget, if you go out to www.sirusdigital.com/mortgage, enter your email address and get that social media engagement PDF. Again, that's just my gift to you for checking this out. A lot of the content that we talked about today is there. Maybe there's a few other things that you may be able to read out of the PDF file, but that actually gets you and I connected so that we can actually talk more often. And if there's other particular videos or something you want to see, that gives you the opportunity to connect with me and talk about other things that may be of interest to you. Now, I'm about to do some questions. As I look here, I see that I've got a few. I want to answer them in just a second, but for those of you that haven't got a chance to get your questions in yet, or you're watching this on video on YouTube or something like that and it's not live, if you want to contact me, david@sirusdigital.com, that's my email address. That's the one I actually answer. That is my address. And then I've mentioned it a couple times before. I put it here as a reminder as well. www.sirusdigital.com/mortgage. That, if you actually go to that site, download the PDF, that connects you to me, and we can keep engaged with that. Now, with that, let's go ahead and answer a couple of the questions that we've had here. Number one, and I'll go ahead and go through those right quick for the ones that we've got right now. How many many leads can I actually get using these organic social media techniques? That's actually a really good question. It's probably one of the first ones everybody asks when we talk about topics like this. And I give the very generic answer, it depends. It's dependent upon how you actually follow some of these techniques, how many platforms you use, how large your social following is already today, and how active you are and how active the groups are. When we talked about groups and whatnot, especially how strong in an affiliation that you are and you can develop pretty quickly, it actually can tell as to how many leads that you can actually produce with some of these techniques. They are good, right? And the one good thing about it, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit more from some of the questions I'm seeing here, but one thing to consider about this is organic work that we're doing across a lot of these platforms, which means that the leads that we can build up become a lead source that we can just be enjoying from an evergreen perspective over time. Now, question number 2 that came up is it really possible to develop a flow of leads just using these techniques on these 4 platforms? Again, kind of a nebulous answer to it. I'm going to say yes and no to that. Yes, it is. If all you want to do is develop your leads on these 4 platforms and you have the time and interest to develop and put into it, yes, it will. Right. And again, I talked about in the earlier question, this being more of an evergreen type of activity, in that it's something that you build and just keeps producing over time. Right. Now, it's not something that like a pay-per-click type of situation. And I talked about earlier from Sirus Digital's perspective, we do a number of different techniques. Social media and some of these group techniques is some of the SEO work that we do. Focuses on some of the services that we provide. We usually, when we work with clients, we do a more overall approach across a number of different ideas. But you can actually build a good flow of leads from just working on an organic fashion in these 4 platforms. It just takes some time. One of the things that we do with Sirus Digital is we usually blend a lot of these particular techniques with development, managing your website, working to where your website is actually something that attacks traffic, as well as doing some of that more intent-based search and active advertising, or intent-based advertising, where you talk pay-per-click, maybe Google and Bing and even YouTube to some extent, and then or more of a interrupt-based, more like from a Facebook perspective on social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. From our perspective, we're doing it as more of a coordinated effort. You can build up good lead flow and good traffic just using organic techniques. It just does take time. And then from number 3's perspective that I got here that somebody had asked, if I only had time to start with one platform, which one would you recommend? I can be a little bit more definitive in this answer, but I'll approach it from 2 different fashions when I say this. If you were to just buy your smartphone today, right, and you said, David, I don't have access to Facebook. I've never had a Facebook account. I've never had a Twitter account. I've never had an Instagram account, LinkedIn account. I've never had any of these social media accounts. I just bought my phone to my computer today. If that's you, I'm going to say start with Facebook, because just the 2.5 billion users that Facebook had, there's lots of eyeballs there, and that's where the biggest audience really is. So I would say start there. Now, for most all of us on the planet, that's not us, right? There are very few of us that would say, David, I just bought my smartphone today or my computer today. Most all of us have Facebook accounts. The vast majority of us probably already have a LinkedIn and Instagram account as well. All of us may not have a YouTube channel or a YouTube account, but we use YouTube. So from that aspect, we either have accounts on all those platforms, or we largely use them in the case of like YouTube. If that was the case, and if you're somebody who has a lot of these accounts, or you have one that you focused on more, that's going to be my recommendation to you. So if you're somebody that's just starting out doing this, Facebook's probably the place I would recommend that you start. If you already have a good, solid, engaged following on another platform, even if it's not one of the 4 that we talked about today, if you've got a great Pinterest account, or you've got a big Twitter account that you interact with a lot of people, especially folks that are in some of those the prospects, the peers prospects, and the customers groups, that you're already interacting with them on that other platform, I would start there. Right. And because realistically, what you're doing is you're actually starting out with a leg up, right? You're already starting out with some history to it and some level of engagement in folks that you've actually been involved with in the past. Well, cool, guys. I think that's the only of the 3 questions that I've got so far. I'm going to drop this slide back up here again. If you do need to get in touch with me, definitely reach out to me at david@sirusdigital.com. Just hit me with the email, whichever one you need to get in touch with me from. With that, guys, you guys have a great evening, and I appreciate it, and take care.